Welcome back to Movie to Blender's Halloween Vlog Review! One of my top favorite scary movies has to be Child's Play. It's the simple story of a young vulnerable boy being tricked and manipulated by a homicidal doll possessed by a foul-mouthed serial killer. It was a movie like I had never seen before. Granted, I saw it as a little kid. But I was instantly a fan of the Child's Play franchise and the legacy it left behind. Unfortunately, Child's Play went the same way that Nightmare on Elm Street did, focusing not on the protagonists, but the eccentric antagonists. In this case, Charles Ray, also known as Chucky.
I'm fucking infamous! I'm one of the most notorious slashers in history.
Whether it's his mad cackle, his nimble movements, or his creative kills, Chucky really did become a favorite of the fans, and that is due, in no small part, to the brilliant voice acting of one of my favorite actors, Brad Dourif. It was when the focus shifted from Chucky's victims to Chucky himself that the series went from Child's Play to the Blank of Chucky series. For instance, Bride of Chucky, Seed of Chucky, and to my surprise, Curse of Chucky. Oh yes, there is a sixth installment to the film series. Now, most of you might be wondering why you didn't see any previews for it. Well, that was because it was released straight to DVD. But as a die-hard Chucky fan, I knew I had to see it. It wasn't quite what I expected, but it wasn't what I feared. So, let's just jump right into it. This is Curse of Chucky.
It's time to play.
So the first thing that sets this movie apart from all the others in the series is that it doesn't have the classic Chucky resurrection scene. Throughout the series, Chucky has been burned, disassembled, cut in pieces, and even blown up. But he's always put back together by some means.
I'll be back! I always come back! But dying is such a bitch.
But in this movie, we don't have that. He just arrives in a box with really no explanation. They simply take in the package, not knowing its purpose. And that's when I got the first warning flag that things were going to be very different. And in a lot of ways, Curse of Chucky feels kind of like a callback to its earlier times. It moves at a slower pace and tries to build a more intense atmosphere, while not really showing the exploits of Chucky. But it also doesn't go to great lengths to hide the fact that Chucky is a killer doll. It's like the filmmakers know that people familiar with the series will watch it, so there's no use in hiding the fact that Chucky is alive. But the later films in the Child's Play franchise were built on the bombastic personality of Chucky. So it all comes out to be unscary because you know what's coming, and unfunny because everyone is stiff and serious. Since the audience already knows Chucky's alive, and the film makes no effort to raise suspicion that it may not be the doll this time, there's no surprise for the big reveal when Chucky finally starts talking. It's just a peculiar delay tactic. You have the doll pretending to be a doll, and everybody's just waiting for him to say some foul-mouthed curse.
Who the fuck are you?
What also doesn't help this fact is that the plot is not all that interesting. We are thrust in the middle of a weird family without any knowledge about them. Gone are all the familiar faces throughout the franchise, with only Chucky remaining, and he isn't saying anything.
Life is short.
Granted, later on in the series, Chucky would go kill crazy just for laughs, but we don't have that Chucky here. The majority of the film, we never see Chucky talk and only get hints of him moving around. This would imply that he's trying to hide and be sneaky to accomplish some goal like he had in the earlier films. You know, that whole putting his soul in a human body thing, everything he struggled for in the Child's Play franchise before it became the Of Chucky franchise.
Man, I really gotta get out of this body.
In those movies, he only killed people that discovered his secret, got in his way, or offered up a big juicy target for a knife in the back. But here, he's just killing to be killing. There's no motivation or humor about it, so it's boring. Granted, at the end of the movie, he does elaborate on his motivations and his suspected goals, but it still took too long to accomplish and felt like it was meandering. The film also suffers from a lack of any likable characters. Nobody is memorable, nobody has a real personality to him. You don't have the vulnerable Andy or the sassy Kyle. The child actor here is sleepwalking through her roles, and nobody else is all that important. Another downside of the film is that the killings are actually pretty boring and subdued. Of course, it would make sense if he's trying to keep a secret, but he isn't, so it doesn't.
I don't have a problem with killing.
But the film does interject something that I haven't seen in many horror movies. A female protagonist that is wheelchair-bound. It is actually a pretty compelling premise. After all, a wheelchair-bound innocent didn't turn Silver Bullet from a mediocre werewolf movie into something a whole lot more interesting. To the movie's credit, it does pick up more in the last 30 minutes of the film. Once Chucky lets loose, the movie gets considerably better. Unfortunately, you have to sit through an hour of filler just to get to it. But as a blatant insult to the fans of the franchise, the film completely disregards the most important rule of the Child's Play franchise. Chucky is becoming flesh and blood in his doll body, which means when you cut him, stab him, shoot him, or knock off his head with an axe, he dies. He dies a bloody mess. Unfortunately, that is not the case in this movie. But, as a counter to that, they do make up for it by giving a little bit of insight into Charles Lee Ray when he was still alive. The film turns out to be an origin story of sorts. The end has a lot of good callbacks to the original series when Chucky lists off his past victims. It's an odd mixture, a movie that was made for fans, but doesn't take into consideration what fans hold dear. The movie does have a nice, unexpected twist, but I don't think it's enough to justify the film's existence. If this is all the creativity the filmmakers could squeeze out of the series, then it's pretty certain that this is the last nail in the coffin. It might have had its ups and downs, but I'll never forget the killer doll movies that made me afraid of my toy box. Until next time, I'm Darren with Movie Blender.